नमस्कार, आप सभी का बहुत स्वागत है एबीपी गंगा में। आपके साथ हूं मैं दीपा बाफिला। आपको सीधे लिए चलते हैं मुंबई, जहां पर एबीपी नेटवर्क की खास पेशकश आइडियाज ऑफ इंडिया का मंच सजा है। एबीपी नेटवर्क के मंच पर देश के बेहतरीन दिमाग वाले दिग्गज भविष्य के भारत की सोच आपके सामने रखने वाले हैं।
I think building that awareness right from the beginning is very, very important. I mean, I've been talking about postpartum, but you also now have children who are grappling with so many issues. So if they know that, whether it is anxiety, whether it is panic, whether it is feeling low, are all things that can happen to people, can happen to young adults, can happen at a much younger age, you're just able to deal with it much better. So I think creating that awareness with yourself. I also feel that it's very important to start creating awareness at a school level because, you have a captive audience. You're able to sensitize the children right from an early age. You're able to also then bring about mental health literacy with their teachers, with the parents. I think it's an entire ecosystem that we really need to bring awareness about.
I think that was very candid of you to share. Adding to that, I must say that is one aspect of motherhood that no one wants to talk about because it's equated to the most beautiful experience in your life, which it is. But the toll it takes on a new mother is phenomenal. And here's the science behind it. Or rather the lack of it. Medical science has been so focused on neonatal and pediatric care that the physiological changes in a woman post-childbirth have only now begun getting academic research level interest. And this I'm talking from the level of medical schools of Mayo and Brown in the US, the top of the medical field really. Because of the preoccupation and focus on the child, the physiological aspect of the mother was never discussed, and which actually coincides with the emergence of acknowledging the need to talk about mental health. It's all happening technically at the same time, around the time that research into women and their mental health around childbirth, post-childbirth, is actually at the same time as the mental health conversation globally. You mentioned how the intervention in schools is really important, so you don't have to wait till 35, 36 to wake up and start addressing your mental health, or you don't have to be at the forefront of a personal situation to start discussing mental health. Tell us about some of the things Empower Minds is doing at a school curriculum level.
So, for example, we have this curriculum, it's a progressive curriculum. So just like you have a math curriculum or a history curriculum, we have a mental health curriculum, which is age appropriate and starts from a young age. It talks about what are the different mental health illnesses, what are the different mental health concerns, what are the reasons for it, how do you deal with them, and it covers an entire gamut right from anxiety, depression, panic to eating disorders, body shaming, personality disorders, all of that. So I think it really helps in, sensitizing the children to what the issues could be, to knowing how to deal and cope with them. Because one thing is to know that, okay, I have a problem. But the more important conversation is what you do about it, right? How do you access treatment? How do you access mental health care? And also knowing that it's okay to feel like that. It's okay that you don't feel well, but it's not okay not to seek help. It's like saying that if you have fever, right, like the conversation we were having earlier, or if you have a fracture, you're not going to just live with it, right? You're going to go to the doctor, you're going to get to fix it. So similarly, if you have a mental health concern, you have to fix it. You have to go to the medical practitioner and take whatever steps are needed to fix that problem so that you're able to lead a fulfilled life. I don't think that it's fair to discriminate against anybody who has a mental health concern. In fact, I think it's a myth because, all of us know that even high achievers can go through mental health concerns. I mean, the two can coexist, right? So therefore, it's very important to have that awareness and then to be able to access mental health care.
It's so poignant that you mentioned that, because mental health or anything which makes you feel not 100% mentally healthy is not the sole domain of somebody who's not successful, somebody who is not getting their way in life. On the contrary, in fact, everybody across the spectrum has some form of lack of mental health at some point of time or the other in their lives. It's just that we as a society are not conditioned to either discuss it or to talk about it. And some of the most empowered people will typically say, oh, you know, you're fine, just go grab an ice cream, or you'll be fine, everything is fine, because we're not conditioned to talking about it. And I hope that in some years when somebody says, you know, I'm not feeling fine, that immediately elicits the same kind of concern. When someone says, you know, I've got a headache or I've got a fever, that level of concern that we show a colleague or a family member or a friend when they talk about even the mildest form of physical discomfort should come out when you talk about the mildest form of mental discomfort. And I think that really is the starting point of trying to get this conversation going. You also mentioned, Mrs. Birla, that apart from introducing through Empower Minds a curriculum across schools, and Pan-India is the vision, you're also setting up centers where people can seek help once they've identified they have a problem. Would you like to talk about that?
Yes. So we've got, so we also provide comprehensive clinical care at Empower. And we have set up centers. So like, say, for example, Bombay has 3, out of which one is a foundation which is running at, you know, which is for the economically challenged section of society. We also have a center in Calcutta, Bangalore, Hyderabad, Goa, Pilani, where we do offer, we have a whole team of psychiatrists and psychologists who are offering that clinical care. And we're reaching out to children, adolescents, adults, and geriatrics. So initially when we had started Empower, 6 years ago, we had started it with keeping in mind that we will only do it for adolescents, because I felt that that's an age where a lot of change needs to be brought about. But as we went along, we realized that the need, even in adults or geriatrics, is so huge that we've actually now expanded and we're offering clinical care pretty much across the lifespan. So we do offer comprehensive clinical care. We also offer, like, you know, occupational help, therapy, speech therapy. So it's like a one-stop shop, like a 360-degree mental health care solution.
I think we're working towards a world where it'll be as normal to walk into a clinic for physical health conditions as it would be for when you're not feeling quite right mentally.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I think that's the vision where, you know, you are able to normalize mental health as much as physical health. You know, in fact, there's a joke in my house, in our household, is that we put so much of emphasis on mental health that physical health issues normally get a little sidelined. You know, that's the kind of mental health care that we have at home, and that's the amount of conversation that we have around it. And you know, I wish that, you know, more and more people and more families would lay that much emphasis, because until your mental health is not in the right space, no matter what, things will just, you'll never be on the top of your game. Or then you're just struggling so much that you're just feeling that you're swimming against the tide every single day.
You know, I think that's really, I would say, progressive and forward thinking of you as a family to talk about that, because very often one will read in the newspapers about a high achiever girl or a boy who's just topping their school, suddenly taking very drastic steps and harming themselves, and everybody asks what appear now to be inappropriate questions. Arey, isko kya zarurat thi? Iske paas to sab kuch hai.
Exactly.
And that is typically the question that most people are continuing to relate to with mental health, that there has to be something bad that happens to you to trigger a mental health episode. It usually doesn't have to be, you know, failing an exam or you know, a personal family level tragedy, of course, that can be a trigger, and of course, professionals are the ones who guide you through that. But sometimes it's the best of your times professionally, and we've had so many people speak up, from Deepika to seeing someone, to lose people like Robin Williams and Heath Ledger at the peak of their careers.
So that's exactly what I was saying earlier, is that you can be a high achiever and doing extremely well in your professional life, but you could also be struggling with mental health concerns. So it's very important to address that. And I think what happens is that most of us, somewhere deep down, believe that it's a personal failing. You feel that you have failed as an individual if you're grappling with a mental health concern. If you have anxiety, for example, you feel that there's something wrong with you. You're not strong enough to be able to deal with the situation in life, and therefore you have anxiety. But the fact of the matter is that anybody could be having anxiety. And if you're dealing with anxiety on a daily level and yet being able to be a productive individual, you're actually, really brave and strong, which means that you're dealing with anxiety and pulling along and dealing with life, which is, and doing great work. So it's a double whammy in a sense, if you know what I mean. So therefore it's very, very important to deal with those issues.
To be in a high performance job and pull along and remain functional while, battling what could potentially be a very, very serious concern from a mental health standpoint. I want to take this conversation towards, before we come back to all the incredible work you're doing, and I want to also talk about the work that you do with the police in Mumbai. I think when you talk about family and how much you prioritize mental health and how much you've empowered your family, tell me a little bit about the incredible work Advait Isha is doing. Because I firmly believe empowered mothers create empowered daughters. Tell me something about what she's doing, and then we'd like to get a mic across to Advait Isha here, who's going to tell us a little bit. I promise not to put you in the spot, but just a little bit about what you're doing, because I think it's incredible. The same step that you've taken to go after something that's less talked about, and you've taken this as a mission to normalize it. It needs to be a normal conversation. Advait Isha is doing that in a similar way for a different issue.
So I'm actually really proud of what my daughter Advait Isha is doing. She's just launched an initiative called Ujas, which she's going to talk about more, and working in the space of menstrual health and hygiene. So it's something that I'm personally very, very proud of as a mom.
Would you like to tell us something about it?
Thank you. So Ujas is an initiative which works with menstrual health, hygiene and management, and we work with grassroots level organizations. We have 3 verticals under Ujas, which is awareness. So we create awareness with girls, with their families, with mothers. We have distribution, so making products more accessible and affordable for our beneficiaries. And we have sustainability, which we look at implementing sustainable measures of intervention so that girls can be self-sufficient and they don't have to rely on anything else or anyone else. And I truly believe that menstrual health is very much connected to women empowerment, and it's a basic human right. And I think that's what really led me to start Ujas.
Thank you for that. I think this young lady deserves a big round of applause. She's just out of school and already finding a way to make a difference. Now, I also want to draw a link back into the lack of discussion and conversation on menstrual health and how that directly has a bearing on the mental health of women. When I was growing up as a 12-year-old, if I had to go to buy menstrual supplies at a chemist, I had to ask for 5 things. And the 5th thing would be, sanitary pads. It shouldn't have to be that way. And unless and until men and women and mothers and fathers normalize conversation on menstrual health, It's not going to happen. So kudos to you and kudos to you, Mrs. Birla, for raising a daughter like this. Because we need to have these conversations.
Thank you. You're absolutely right, actually. And you know, the statistics that she tells me are so appalling that we, you know, over here, like in Bombay, for example, in our kind of houses, also, you know, there's a lot of stigma. But of course, what she says and what happens at the grassroots level, at the rural level, is far worse and absolutely unthinkable. So I'm really happy that she's taken up this cause, and she's really doing it with a lot of, you know, she's very passionate about it. And I'm sure that it's going to make a huge difference and huge impact. And like you very rightly said, that it has a direct bearing on the mental health as well of women. So it's a huge area of need.
And young girls who have to go buy themselves menstrual supplies. I mean, I remember the trauma of having to go to that chemist because my mother would take care of this. I was 12, 13, I think I was 12 or 13. I was on winter break visiting my grandparents, and I didn't know how to do it. And my heart was beating at like HIIT levels, that's the only parallel I can give, being a fitness person. And I didn't know how to have this conversation. And there were only men in the, like you have only men selling lingerie in India. You only have men in chemist stores. And I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
So, you know, it was so traumatizing for me that, and I come from a very, very empowered liberal space. So can you imagine what it's like for little girls out there where conversations around menstrual health have not even happened?
Yeah.
And is it fair to just throw our little girls to the lions of menstrualhood without adequately educating them? I mean, that's a question we all need to ask ourselves. It's not something you can hide away from anymore.
You're absolutely right, but I think what's also very important is to...
चलिए इसी बीच आपको सीधे लिए चलते हैं। सपा की प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस चल रही है, नरेश उत्तम इसको संबोधित कर रहे हैं, आपको सुनवाते हैं।
सर्वसम्मत से विधायक दल का नेता चुना गया है और विधानमंडल दल का नेता भी सर्वसम्मत से माननीय श्री अखिलेश यादव जी को ही चुना गया है और उनको सर्वसम्मत से बधाई हमारे विधानमंडल दल के सभी माननीय सदस्यों ने दी है, उनका स्वागत किया है और जनता को भी, मतदाताओं को भी आभार भी व्यक्त किया गया है, धन्यवाद दिया है कि समाजवादी पार्टी के नेता माननीय श्री अखिलेश यादव जी के कुशल नेतृत्व में जो चुनाव हुआ है, उनके नेतृत्व का भी अभिनंदन किया गया है। माननीय श्री अखिलेश यादव जी विधानमंडल दल के नेता चुने गए हैं और विधायक दल के भी नेता चुने गए हैं। उनके विधायक दल के नेता चयन का प्रस्ताव वरिष्ठ समाजवादी पार्टी के विधायक श्री अवधेश प्रसाद जी ने किया है और अवधेश प्रसाद जी के प्रस्ताव का अनुमोदन वरिष्ठ माननीय विधायक श्री आलम बदी साहब ने किया है और अवधेश प्रसाद जी द्वारा रखे गए प्रस्ताव का समर्थन आलम बदी साहब के साथ साथ सभी निर्वाचित माननीय विधायक गणों ने किया है और विधानमंडल दल के नेता का प्रस्ताव वरिष्ठ माननीय विधायक श्री लालजी वर्मा जी ने विधानमंडल दल के नेता का प्रस्ताव किया है और विधानमंडल दल के नेता के प्रस्तावक श्री लालजी वर्मा के प्रस्ताव का समाजवादी पार्टी के वरिष्ठ विधान परिषद के सदस्य श्री राजेंद्र चौधरी जी ने किया है। उक्त दोनों प्रस्तावों को विधानमंडल दल के सभी माननीय सदस्यों ने समर्थन किया है और माननीय अखिलेश यादव जी विधानमंडल दल समाजवादी पार्टी के नेता चुने गए हैं और विधायक दल के भी नेता चुने गए हैं। विधायक दल का नेता और विधानमंडल दल के नेता चुने जाने के बाद सभी नेताओं ने उन्हें शुभकामनाएं दी है कि जनता की मूलभूत ज्वलंत समस्याओं को लेकर सदन में माननीय अखिलेश यादव जी जनता की पक्ष को बहुत मजबूती के साथ रखेंगे और सरकार के झूठे जुमलों पर, सरकार के गलत कार्यों पर जो लोकतांत्रिक परंपरा है कि सदन के अंदर उसका विरोध होगा और सदन के अंदर उनका खुलासा भी किया जाएगा, क्योंकि समय समय पर भारतीय जनता पार्टी ने पूर्व में सरकार में जनता को गुमराह किया, जनता के साथ धोखा किया, जनता के साथ छलावा किया है। इसीलिए भारतीय जनता पार्टी पिछली बार से अब की बार बहुत पीछे आ गई है, बहुत पीछे आ गई है। जनता ने माननीय अखिलेश यादव जी पर विश्वास किया और जनता ने माननीय अखिलेश यादव जी को उत्तर प्रदेश के मुख्यमंत्री बनाने के लिए वोट दिया, लेकिन भारतीय जनता पार्टी की सत्ता का दुरुपयोग और सत्ता के माध्यम से अधिकारियों का भी दुरुपयोग किया गया। सर्वप्रथम तो चुनाव आयोग ने जिस समय मतदाता सूची के पुनरीक्षण का काम शुरू किया था, सबसे पहले भारतीय जनता पार्टी के नेताओं के इशारे पर कुछ अधिकारियों ने पहले तो मतदाताओं को मतदाता सूची से वंचित किया। बड़ी तादाद पर एक एक विधानसभा में 10 से 15 हजार तक समाजवादी पार्टी समर्थक मतदाताओं के नाम हटा दिए गए। जो मतदाता सूची में संशोधन का प्रारूप 6, 7, 8 भरे, उनको चुनाव आयोग के लगे हुए कुछ कर्मचारियों ने उन समाजवादी समर्थक मतदाताओं के नाम हटाए। इसके बाद लोकतंत्र को बीजेपी ने कलंकित कर दिया। पूरी दुनिया में भारतीय जनता पार्टी ने उत्तर प्रदेश के चुनाव में जो नंगा नाच किया, उससे हमारा लोकतंत्र कलंकित हुआ। देश का सबसे बड़ा राज्य, जहां पर केंद्रीय हुकूमत, अन्य राज्यों की हुकूमत के लोग उत्तर प्रदेश में आकर के धन बल का, सत्ता बल का दुरुपयोग किया और दुरुपयोग से चुनाव परिणाम को भी प्रभावित किया। मतगणना में भारी अनियमितताएं हुई, जीतने वाले हार गए और हारने वाले जीत गए। बहुत बड़ी तादाद पर समाजवादी पार्टी के मानी प्रत्याशी गण चुनाव जीत रहे थे,